Salutations and shit, guys. Welcome to your new favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit. I am your host, D. Carey, and here we have, and by we, I mean me, sometimes an occasional guest, have more of an experiential conversation about travel. It's not just destination based, it's more about the experience that's had and how we are impacted and changed in our regular life. So, I'm also on IG Live, so every once in a while I'll jump on and answer some questions as I'm going. And yes, you get the theme song. It's just that it's playing in my headphones, so you just can't hear it on the screen because I'm also on what is this called? You know what I'm talking about, on the computer. So welcome to another episode. I am happy to have you all with me. If you're new, and if you're old, and if you're someplace in between, if you've listened to a few and you decide to come back, I appreciate you. And like I appreciate you, I also think that hear me out, appreciated 2020. So this has been quite a year, but I am very fortunate to say that I think I'm ending 2020 better than I started it. I have so much to be thankful for, that I'm very grateful for, and that's been on my heart really heavy the past week. So that happens to be what this week's episode is about. But as a little note, keeping it short, I do have merch. You've missed the window for holiday cutoff at this point. But when y'all start getting those gift cards, wink, wink, feel free to roll on over to travelandshippodcast.com, click on the shop tab and buy you some merch. I added some new stuff on there, not really intentionally. I just really wanted something to go with a pair of boots I bought. So added shit. So go check that out if you are interested in supporting the kid and showing love to the podcast. I've got a solo travel planning course that is there for free. It is a download and it gives you guys the steps that I take to plan out all of my trips, whether I am going with boyfriend, whether I'm going with homegirl, whether I'm going by myself. I use the same process so that it makes sense for me. And I know that I hit all of the points that are important to me when I'm going to a destination. So hopefully that'll be able to help some of you who don't necessarily have the confidence in your own skills to plan or help plan a trip that you may be going on. And I've got a mailing list. I would appreciate if you signed up for that. I don't want to write a million emails, so I promise you I promise you I won't send you a million. I just want to keep you guys up to date with when there's a new episode and when there's new merch. That's basically it. So that is all for the announcements, and I will jump into this week's episode. And it's, like I said, about gratitude. I was talking to, I'm not sure if I was talking to boyfriend or somebody else. Yes, the most recent time I brought up the experience, I was talking to my shorty, and I was having a moment saying that I've experienced some real kindness from people in so many different places in the world. And, you run across somebody that does something nice for you, or someone that says a nice word or something, or gives you good service or whatever. But you tend to remember the people that do a really standout job of making you feel welcomed, or making you feel safe in a different place. And I've thankfully had a handful of experiences where I can say that that's happened. So 2020 has been a good year, and I can't say that I, don't reflect on other good times when I think about what I have to be grateful for. So got my little list here, and the first trip I took really set the stage. So back in January 2017, I was supposed to go to Martinique. If you've listened to this show before, you've heard this story. I had my best friend, hey Courtney, she was at the crib braiding my hair. Courtney is always a friend that, well, when I had hair, she's always a friend that I would go to. Love her, because even when I hit her with the shits last minute, she would be down if she was free to braid my hair. And for those of us hair braiders, it takes forever. Getting some box braids is not a light undertaking. And she was braiding my hair up for me. After a few hours, it was maybe 4 something o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call or a text message, and I ignored it because I'm like, who's calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning? And then it registered like, no, really, who's calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning? And it turns out that my flight to Martinique had been canceled. Something had hit the plane on the ground, and so their contingency plan was to have me fly out of Boston the next day. But I was in no shape or fashion going to sit on anybody's bus to get to Boston to then fly out a whole day later. I'd miss a day, on my trip. I would miss it. There was so many different little things that just weren't agreeable for me. So I ended up canceling the trip. Thankfully, at this time, I booked with Expedia, so I was able to cancel it in all one spot, and I only lost 1 day from the hotel. I was talking to my mom about it after taking like a nap and was like, where should I go? She's on, hey, Jade. Hi, baby. How are you, my love? And my mama said, I loved Bermuda. You should go to Bermuda. So to Bermuda, I went. And I fucking loved it. I had, sadly, not really packed for the occasion because Martinique at the time in January I was looking at like, high 80s for, my weather. So I barely had any clothes in my suitcase. And when I got to Bermuda, the temperature was like, I don't know, 60s. I think the warmest day we had was like 71 degrees, maybe 72. I bet you I got in the water though. But I'd had, what's up, Dynamic Prophet? I had a great time in Bermuda, and part of that was due to Miss Joyce. So I will never forget. Yeah, it was rough, especially considering the Jade just commented, yikes for 60s. Yeah, especially since I only had shorts. So it was cute till it wasn't cute. It was a thing. But I decided that, and also it being January, everything was out of season. So all of the, what do you call the jet skis and the different tours and just like the stuff that you would, Ma, tell daddy I'm recording, please. Thank you. The stuff that you would get to, do in a tropical island and, really get to enjoy was out of season. So nothing was open for me to book through any of the different apps that I figured I would use. But what I did do was I decided to piece together a couple of the locations on different Black History tours that I wanted to go on. And I just found where they were on a map and mapped it as if I were, in the States. It's, an English speaking country. So thankfully it wasn't rocket science. And I took the initiative to get in contact with the hotel. I don't want to say concierge, but I guess you could say guest services or activity services. I don't exactly know or remember what her precise title was, but Miss Joyce was the woman that you go to talk to when you needed help booking things to do around the hotel, or not just the hotel, but around the island. And I didn't know until like midway. What's up, Tone? Till like midway through the fucking trip that it was an all-inclusive resort as well. And I, thank the, what's his name? I don't remember. I had a bartender who was just like, should I put this on your room? And I was like, no, I'm gonna just pay for it. And he was like, oh, well, because, most people put it on their room because it's, they're doing the all-inclusive option. I was like, oh, I didn't know that was an option. He said, hold your drink. I'm gonna get the manager. Manager came over. We talked for a little bit, asked what you do at home, yada, 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 chopped the shit. And he was just like, don't worry about it. You just made the cutoff. You're supposed to have 3 days for us to give you the all-inclusive. This was like my third to last day. So after the day that I was already in, if that makes sense, I only had 2 days left. So he said, we're going to retroactively, like, all the shit that you already ordered, you're covered, you're good. and you're good for the rest of your stay on the hotel. So that was the first step. The bartender absolutely looked out and got the manager on board to make sure that I didn't have to pay for any more of my food or drink while I was on the resort. And what I did was I went down to, I guess, the activities manager, we'll call her. And that's where Miss Joyce comes in. I had to piece together a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do, but I still felt like, well, she here, I ain't doing nothing. I can't necessarily just walk into the places that I've seen that I wanted to go that don't have, public access. So let me speak with this woman. And I explained what I wanted to do. And she ever so graciously took the time out to put together a packet for me. Like, she put together a custom packet of places and things to do and see that were within the area of shit that I enjoyed doing, the things that I expressed to her that I wanted to see and do. And she also took the initiative to call the I guess you could say, the slave history museum, I guess. There's, you know how most places that have some history of slavery will have a museum of some sorts where you can see how they lived and like the different items or artifacts that they may have used to wash clothes, to eat food, or stylized clothing of the era and that kind of shit. So she called that museum for me because she knew that they were going to be closing soon. And she also knew that I was going to be getting on the bus to go there. So she called, asked them to stay open for me. When I got there, she called to make sure that I'd gotten there safely. And for me, that was like the chef's kiss. She went out of her way to make sure that I, this little black girl on a foreign island for the first time in her life, was safe. And I will never forget that act of kindness. And oddly enough, the lady that was, I guess, the, not proprietor, but the woman that was doing the tours at the museum reminded me of my grandma. And when I got back to the hotel, there was a packet left for me, envelope with mad papers. She hand wrote probably 70% of the shit that she left for me, and with details of where to go, why it may be of interest. And she left it in the room for me like she said she was. And that was the first time I think anyone had ever gone that far out of their way for almost nothing. Like, I hadn't been paying her in particular for any services. Like, I didn't book her for a tour. I wasn't staying at her Airbnb. Like, she was, technically it was her job, but I really feel like she went above and beyond and out of what her job, I guess, necessarily entailed. Like, she ain't have to be that thorough. She didn't have to care that much, and she didn't have to take all those extra steps to make sure that I felt safe and comfortable while I was traveling. So, Miss Joyce, if somehow, some way, some ever this gets to you, you the real MVP. I appreciate you. And she was American. I think she'd married a Bermudian, and they moved to Bermuda. I want to say she was like from Baltimore or Maryland or something like that. So she was absolutely someone that you could, or at least for me, I could look at and be like, oh, you would absolutely be friends with my mom. You would be like one of my aunties. Like, you feel like home. You know what I mean? Just the spirit and the attitude that she gave off while I was with her. So that was the first time I'd left the country. And besides the resort being incredibly beautiful and my experiences there being absolutely, I feel like that was the best way to start off such a new adventure, if you will. Like, I'd only done state traveling. Like, I'd had like a boyfriend fly me to come see him wherever the nigga I was dealing with was living. And I would go see cousins. I would take road trips and go see family. in like Virginia or in Jersey or something like that. But for the most part, not for the most part, I had never gone anywhere other than someplace that I could fly to or my parents could get to, like, like nothing if something had happened to me. So that was, I can't say enough times how incredible that was. And I really think that had to do with why I've been able to really appreciate travel the way that I do, because I had a great experience to start with. So I feel like, in all fairness, like I was set up to win in this travel sphere. It just was preordained that it would be such an important part of my life and something that's very important to me. So after Bermuda, I'll jump to Qatar. So this is a fun one. I will end the live here, though, so that y'all have something to look forward to. So bye. I gotta say that Qatar was a time. So I actually went during Ramadan, and I had the setup was cool. So I found out that with certain airlines now, because of everything that's going on with COVID, I cannot attest to if this is still a thing. But back in 2017, probably 18, when I did go, at the time I was flying Qatar Airways, and they, along with, a couple other airlines, have this program where if you fly into the home city of an airline, they will offer you a free tour of the city that you land in, a layover tour. If you have a layover that is usually longer than like 6 or 8 hours, it's beneficial to doing something outside of the airport, right? And they also gave you the opportunity of letting you they comped a visa that allowed you to not just leave the airport, but to section off from the rest of the group that went on the tour. So they gave me a free tour of Doha, which is the capital of Qatar. They paid for my visa, and there were 2 different visa classes that they were giving. It's the visa just to do the tour, and then you come back to the airport, or you do the visa that allows you to stay in the city and, roam freely or do as you, whatever booking and accommodations you put together for, I want to say, maybe 96 hours max or something like that. I don't know, a couple of days at the max. I think I did 2 or 3 days. And I also was able to, you had to do it within a certain window, but they had different, not restrictions, but they suggested that you get your visa approved before you book your hotel, but you only had a certain window between booking a hotel, because they gave you a credit for booking like a 4 or 5-star hotel for like $50 a night, which you don't do. Like that, they generally cost so much more. And I ended up, I think, doing I ended up staying at like a 4-star hotel or something like that, or a 3-star, but I ended up paying for it on my own. But I think it was still only like $75 a night or something like that. All that being said, there are some programs that are worth looking into. You'd have to find out if they're still applicable or available to you with COVID restrictions, but I lucked the fuck out on this one. So I ended up taking the tour from the airport. I ended up catching the last one of the day, and I knew, and the guide knew, that I was not going to be returning to the airport with the rest of the guests that were on the tour. The tour was at night. So we get on the little bus, and not little, it's one of them coach buses. So I get on the bus, and you can't really see everything, but you can also appreciate it for, the lights. When cities are lit up, they're beautiful, but I would have liked it better during the day just so I could get a feel for the area I was in. So we take a drive around, they're explaining stuff, wah. I wanted to go shopping. So we get to this open market. I think they call it a souk. And there are people breaking fast and families are eating together. And there are a whole bunch of little shops and tables set up. It's mad nice. And was this around Christmas? I don't know. I feel like it may have been around the holiday. It might be. No, whenever. No, Ramadan. Not my holiday. Their holiday. I knew it was a holiday. So I'm walking around all these little shops and I find one. And the first thing that I noticed is that he acknowledged me. Give me one moment, miss. I will be right with you. I just would like to finish helping the woman that I'm serving now. Probably not verbatim, but you get the point. For me, someone that has worked customer service and still has a job that entails a lot of motherfucking customer service, I'm an easy sell. If you have me, even if you don't really mean it, if you have me think you appreciate the idea that I may spend money with you, I personally am more inclined to actually spend money with you. So that right there sold me. So as opposed to moving down or going someplace else, I stayed there and continued to look at the jewelry that I was looking at. So like he said, as soon as he was done, he finished with the lady who was helping, came down, greeted me again, and, welcomed me to come on in, see the rest of the shit that we have in the shop. Woo, 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 woo. So I'm going through all this stuff, and he's somehow able to be attentive without being creepy or being like overly pushy either. So he's got the golden, setup going. He's doing a great job. And then I guess someone from a different shop, but the same shop, comes in, also greets me, asks if I'd like some water or if I'd like some tea or coffee. And so I'm like, oh, y'all give out beverages here. I like this. Yes, please. I'll take some coffee. So he comes back, brings in a tray of coffee, and he starts speaking to the other shopkeeper. And I don't know what language they were speaking. I'm assuming it's Arabic. I don't know. I might be lying to the people right now. But he starts speaking to the shopkeeper, then he stops himself and he goes, "Excuse me, do you mind if I speak to him in our native language?" And I'm like, "Oh, you checking in with me? Of course you can. I'm in your country, but thank you so much for acknowledging that I may be uncomfortable." Sell point, what, at this point is 4? And so then he comes and he's like, "Would you like some water?" Sure. Comes back, brings me a bottle of water. And at this point, I'm wrapping up my purchase. And I'm explaining to the guy, I actually have to meet the rest of my tour group at the meeting point. I don't mean to rush you. You've been nothing but accommodating and so kind. But I'm kind of in a rush at this point. Because mind you, they went through like this whole process of, because I'd bought, I want to say, some rings, some bracelets, like leather bracelets, and some earrings. And the rings, they put in like a little ring box, but it was shaped like a flower. So the ring box was actually like a yellow little rose. And then it had like a little stem at the bottom of it. It was cute. And he did like this whole show kind of dramatic reveal where he's like, "Hold on one second." And he dips down behind the counter and he's fidgeting around and does all this shit. And then he comes back up and he goes, "A flower for you," or something. It was ridiculously corny, but so cute. And that's what had the rings in it. And so he expeditiously got all my shit together after all of that. We went to another stall or whatever because they were able to take credit cards. Woo, woo, woo. And at this point, I'm like kind of nervous about time, but we're making good on time. So we wrapped that up. And then I asked him, "Do you know what direction I'm going to go to get back like towards the parking lot?" Because at this point, we'd gone through like a bunch of other little stores and like we walked through stores to get to other sides of stores. It was a little trek. So I got turned around. I know where the fuck I was going. So he's like, "Of course, don't worry. I will escort you. Like, I will bring you." So my man walks me through the crowd quickly and takes me back in the direction that I need to go to get back with the tour group. So we're coming up on the meet spot, and I'm like, where they at though? I looked down at my watch, and I think I was maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes past the time that we were going to meet the tour group. So I'm like, well, you know, you always have a couple of stragglers. You know what I mean? So I would have assumed that I wouldn't have been the latest motherfucker to get back to this bitch. Apparently I was, and they weren't there. So now I'm starting to get worried. And he's just like, okay, well, let's keep walking. So we keep walking. And he's like, do you see anybody? I'm like, nah, fam, I don't know these people. I don't know what's going on. Mind you, I only had my backpack. My suitcase was on the bus. Thankfully, all like my important shit, I always keep on my person. I never let my passport get, separated from me unless, of course, I'm leaving it in my room. So I had all my important shit in my backpack, but the suitcase had like all my clothes. And mind you, this was the layover for my trip. This wasn't even like my end all be all trip after the, not end all be all, but the short version of the, the short version of the, this was the short leg of the trip. This was for, thank you. Huh? Oh, true. Thank you. So this was just like the short part of the trip. This wasn't going to be the what do you call it? I was going to Thailand afterward. So this ended up being the layover. I repeated myself. Y'all be all right. So we looking for the peoples, and we can't find anybody. We're looking, and now I'm getting scared because I don't even have all of my stuff with me. So I'm like, yo, if the bus is gone, like my stuff is gone, that means I'd have to find my way back to the to the airport, and then figure out from there how all the fuck I'm going to get my things back. So he's walking. What about here? What about there? And I'm just like, no, I'm starting to get worried. We get to the parking lot, still don't see the group. I stop, turn, look like maybe 100 yards away, and I see like a group of people, and then I see like a tour bus turning the corner and coming down the street going towards where that group of people is. So I'm like, yeah, I think that's them. And we kind of noticed it at the same time. My man said, hold on. He hiked up his robe, fucking cleared, ran straight across the parking lot. Like he ran all the way over, got to the group, spoke to somebody, turned, did the ayo, and was like, that's them. And so now I'm running back to the bus because I wanted to get my bag. The tour guide he was apologetic. He was like, oh, my fault. Like I thought that you like you said you were staying. Like you said that you weren't coming back with us to the airport. And I'm like, yeah, but y'all got my shit. Like my suitcase is still on the bus. And I'd left my suitcase on the bus because at that point it was just like, well, I don't know what I am going to be walking into when I, get off the bus. I know that, cobblestone ain't exactly a fun time with a suitcase. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna leave my bag on the bus because, a lot of people had their bags left on the bus, and that I would just pick it up after the tour and then be on my way. And that almost didn't happen. When I tell you, I thanked that man so much. I was so grateful, and I just felt as if I wasn't able to really, express myself the way that I would have wanted to. I didn't feel as if I was, like, I don't know. I just was so grateful for him going above and beyond. Like he didn't just let his service end at our fiscal transaction. Like I didn't pay him and then, thank you for your purchase. Go with God. You know what I mean? Like he made sure that I got to my destination, if you will, or the closest thing to a destination that, he could attest to that he could. Like he made sure that I got where I needed to go. And that was, again, like this was at this point, was Qatar before? Thailand. Yeah, that was. So I'm trying to think. Casablanca was for before Barcelona. Okay, yeah. So this wasn't the first time I'd gone like far from home. So yeah, it was still a stressful fucking trip, and it was night. So I didn't have that opportunity to, I don't know what it is, but seeing more of what's going on around you, for me, I don't know about y'all, but for me, it just gives me, I don't want to say a false sense of security, but it allows me to kind of just not feel as wild about what's going on, because I feel like I can see more coming my way should some shit pop off. But that being said, he did not let his service end with our financial transaction. He made sure that I was able to reunite with the group and, feel more than taken care of than he had any reason to. So I absolutely appreciated him going out of his way like that for me. And I ended up, that was one of those trips where in hindsight, you kind of think like, that was probably a really bad idea. But I ended up walking from the market to the hotel I was staying at. And when I tell you, I went down so many like dark alleys and girl don't do it moments, but I was very determined to walk to the hotel. And additionally, like the straight shot that I was, seeing on my map to take was basically a fucking highway. So there, like the sidewalk ran out. So I wasn't able to, hey Chris, I wasn't able to, take the straight route to the hotel. So I'm walking. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. Like this is now no longer a sidewalk. It's cobblestone. So I'm dragging my suitcase over the cobblestone. And I then am like, okay, this is becoming a bit much. Let me take one of these detours. I ended up taking a detour down into like, I guess, a little city area, or I don't know. It just was not the highway. So I took a detour into like areas where there were sidewalks and stuff like that. And I stopped in some random guy sitting like in the back of a store in an alley, which I was trying to see if he spoke English or not. And I'm just like showing him where on the map I'm trying to go. And he's like, take a taxi. And I'm like, nah, but it's right here. I just need to know where this street is. And he's like, take a taxi. And I'm like, I hear you, but right here. And I'm just like, okay, so you're not giving me what I want. Appreciate you. And then I remember people that absolutely look like tourists, a whole bunch of white folks, like stared me dead in my face when I asked them for help, like looking like, oh, maybe you speak English, or maybe you even speak Spanish. Maybe you speak some shit where I might know 3 fucking words. They just looked at me and just was like, what the fuck are you stopping to ask me any questions? So you know what? To those of y'all, if you ever hear this, fuck y'all. Y'all no fucking help. And I hope you get a paper cut on your next tour and then end up going on an alcohol tasting and it spills on your paper cut. Don't know how that's going to work itself out, but that's for y'all. So I ended up going through, I don't know where the hell I cut through, but I ended up in some weird janky ass like parking area. And as I'm walking again in the dark, I noticed like there's a car driving behind me. And it got to that point, like when you're watching a movie and you're like, girl, this is the point where you either like fight or flight. It was kind of feeling like, all right, is this person following me or am I in the way? You're far enough away that I'm absolutely not in your way, but what are you trying to do? Like, am I overthinking this, or is this really the moment when some shit might actually go left, right? So at that moment, when it started really getting like I was starting to panic, I realized that's my hotel right in front of me. So I climbed over like it was like a little barricade or some shit. I carried my happy ass right on over and walked across the street to the hotel. And that just right when I started really getting scared, like this was a bad idea. I should have taken a fucking taxi. It all ended up working itself out. But shout out to that shopkeeper who really went way above and beyond and made sure that I was taken and I was absolutely taken care of. And to tie up the list, I would say I was really, really blown away by 3 of my Airbnb hosts in particular. I have so much gratitude for the appreciation that they showed me for booking with them. And I felt the extra little touches that they added to their service. And of highest note would be my host in Norway. I stayed in Tromsø. I was there for maybe 3 days, 2 nights. And I got there, I want to say Saturday night. My host picked me up from the airport because in the message that we had sent each other, she was telling me, our buses don't really run. I will pick you up. She picked me up and she was just like, she looked like such a fancy society woman. Like she had like this really cute, like long black coat with like the fur around it. And she drove like this really cute little Volvo or some shit like that. And then she was saying, I know it's really late. Would you like to go to the grocery store because they'll all be closed tomorrow? So that was like nice little touch too. Like not only are you picking me up from the airport for no charge, you're telling me, hey girl, so everything's shut down tomorrow. You might want to grab something to eat now. She drove me there. She was like, be careful. I'm here. Take your time. If you need me, let me know. Went inside. You would think that supermarkets would be easy to navigate because you look at a food and you know it or you don't, right? I didn't realize until that moment how heavily I absolutely do rely on labels and packaging. As much as you can look at what something is in a picture, I don't always trust what that picture is, or you realize how ambiguous some of the pictures are. And I'm trying to read it, but I don't speak. What do they speak in Norway? Dutch or some shit? I don't even know what they fucking speak in Norway. But whatever the fuck it is, I'm looking at on the package. I don't understand it. So it was like, all right. Thankfully, Google Translate has this option where if you hold your phone to the label, it'll translate like pictures. So any words that it picks up, it'll translate the words on there for you. So I used that for a couple of things, and I was able to get like some soup or like, I don't know, snacky shit that I couldn't really fuck up if I tried to, So she brought me back to the apartment. She had a house, and then like the basement she had it turned into like a beautiful fucking apartment. So she brought me back. I lost my phone. And by lost, I mean it fell out in the car. But at the time, I didn't know where the fuck it was. So I'm like, I think it may have fallen out in the car. It's not with me. She said, well, let me just settle in here. I'll go back in 2 minutes and I'll check for you. Thankfully, she went out. She found it. Not an issue. She came back and she was saying, well, I'm going to, cook. Would you like to join me for dinner? Well, I'll be damned. Yes, please. She's like, well, I'm going to make some pizza. I thought that she was going to pull out some King Elio's or DiGiorno's or whatever frozen pizza, we here in the States like to call pizza. Some of it's good, though. Let's not front. Homegirl took out dough. Like, I think I went back upstairs for something, and she had dough, actual roll of salami. She was making pizza. So I'm like, whoa, look at you. So she made the pizza. She called me when it was ready. She had wine, and we sat and we talked. I'd never had like a conversation with my host before, I don't think. And it was outside of there being an actual like tour or something that I was paying them for. So old girl just sat and talked for me for shits and giggles. And she was such an interesting person. She was so kind. She gave me, information about the area. We talked about life. We talked about families. We talked about so many things. And I will never forget how she just felt like an extended family member. Like it kind of felt like when I went to Seattle. One of my best friends, Alicia, her brother, Robbie, was in medical school in Seattle. So I was in Seattle and she's like, Robbie's there, call him. And I'm just like, yeah, girl, but you're my friend, not Rob. Like, he's older than us. He doesn't want to hang out with his sisters, his little sister's friends. And she's like, call Robbie. So I'm like, girl, call Robbie. Fine. Cool, Rob. We had a kick-ass fucking time. We had so much fun. And it was just one of those things where I didn't expect you to care enough to want to hang out. Same with my host here in Tromsø. She went above and beyond to make sure that I was safe, that I was comfortable, and that I would be accommodated outside of what her immediate concerns should have been for all intents and purposes. It's not her business whether or not I eat. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really her problem. That's something that you assume that your guest works out for them. If you want to be nice, you kind of just leave them a list of numbers that they can call, or you just let them know, hey, this is not going to be available. Let me know if something comes up, or you let them do a lot more of the logistics of figuring themselves out in a new place. She didn't leave me to do that on my own. And I absolutely appreciated that, because she went out of her way to not just make sure that I was good, but to welcome me into her home and really make me feel comfortable and welcome there. And that did not go unfelt or unappreciated. So Tone was one of the absolute best hosts that I had for an Airbnb. I had another really good one in Casablanca. She was notable because she was so patient and kind. Not only did she pick me up? I don't think she picked me up, but I do know she told me, come in, settle down. I'm going to make you breakfast. She made these bomb ass like Moroccan pancakes or some shit. I don't know, but the food was good. Fresh jams and stuff. She was like, eat breakfast, wash up, rest, whatever you want to do. We'll go out and head into town at X, Y, and Z time. So she let me decompress. She left me the fuck alone. She let me get myself together. We met up at the agreed upon time, and we walked for hours. We basically hung out, walked around the city. She was an incredible tour guide. And I just remember her being like a really good tour guide. And I just really appreciated that extra touch of doing the breakfast. Beautiful home, very knowledgeable. And she was cool. She wasn't like, she wasn't a Tone. I didn't feel like she was extended family or nothing, but we had a good time, and she was a good host. And I would end off that section with, I don't remember their name, but I stayed in, I looked it up a couple of days ago. I want to say it's La Habana. And then I stayed in Havana, not in old Havana, but like just Havana in general. I think I stayed maybe a mile and a half outside of old Havana, because I know I walked into the heart of the city when I was staying in the little apartment that I was in. But what was cute about that one was it was owned by a couple, and they came every day for housekeeping. So they would come clean the apartment and cook breakfast. And they were the cutest. They were so kind. They always, what time would you like us to come for breakfast tomorrow? And whatever time I said, that's the time they showed up. They made my breakfast. They would ask, is everything okay to your liking? What do you want? Yada, yada, yada. They would cook. And then they would go have their coffee outside on the little patio, and they would leave me to eat my breakfast and then leave me to go, do what it was I wanted to do. But I remember having such a cute little welcoming conversation with them. They were so kind. And I just remember them being like this cute little old couple that, you could kind of say, that looks like some cute shit to do. You know what I mean? Maybe one day my parents buy some property overseas someplace or whatever, and they host people. I don't even know if I'd really want to let them do that kind of thing. Let them do that, right? You hear me, Ma, right? Girl, have fun. But all that being said, I just really remember them being like really, really sweet and kind. And I noted that I had 2 honorable mentions on my gratitude list. And the first one goes to my host in China. Old girl ain't speak not a damn word of English. Not a lick. Not a none of it. And she was very... let me preface it by this. I had no... So China was not necessarily some place that was high on my list of places to visit, but it wasn't absolutely some place that I wanted to go. I would have preferred to visit, I want to say, I think it was Beijing. I know there was a couple of layover options that presented themselves, but I missed the one that I really would have wanted to do so that I can visit Great Wall of China. But I ended up doing a Shanghai layover, and that's another one of those layovers that affords you the opportunity to not pay for your visa if you stay within a certain space of the territories or whatever, the municipalities or provinces. I don't know what they're called in particular. But if you stay within, I guess, like those city lines or whatever, you don't have to pay for a visa. You can just, land, have a good time. So did that. And my host did a really good job of making sure that she met me down where the taxi left me off. She escorted me into the hotel, and we had every lick of the conversation on Google Translate. She had a guest that was still in the room, so I couldn't even, go straight to sleep when I got there. I think I arrived at like 6 a.m. or something like that. Maybe 8. I don't know. It was really early. It was really early before normal checkout times, but her previous guest was going to be out. And so she just like sat on the couch with me. And while we were sitting there, like I was trying to explain to her that I needed a taxi to go to the part in the city where I was meeting Mickey. She actually was a guest on the show. I want to say it's between episode 30 something and 40 something if you're interested. But I think it's called China Has Minorities, something like that. But I needed to get to the city so that I can get to that tour that I would be doing with Mickey. And I didn't know how the fuck I was going to. This is probably one of the ones that I just go with God. You show up and you figure, I'll figure it out or ask for help. Thankfully, I didn't have to ask for that much help because my host listened, if you will, did the air quotes. She got the message that I was trying to get to the destination and that I'd appreciate her doing the translating for me. So she really came through in the clutch, and she made sure to let the driver know that when he drops me back, like that he would need to pick me up again. This way I didn't have to navigate a taxi to get back to her place, because it's one thing to have, say, Mickey get a taxi for me once we're in the city, but she could have then told him where I was going, and then I hoped for the best, but then I would have had to try to contact the host and all that other kind of shit. So it worked out perfectly that my host arranged for the taxi to bring me to the city and to pick me back up. And when he picked me back up, he was going to wait for me so I can pick up my bag and then go right back to the airport, because that was it. That was my layover. It was cute. I got done what I wanted to get done. Old girl really looked out for me, and she made it so that I didn't have to stress outside of, being able to get from that taxi to meet up with Mickey. That was a little stressful but thankfully Mickey speaks English, so I was able to call her and have her speak to the taxi driver and, find my way to where she was. But yeah, that host, I appreciate her doing that, because I can't really say that I had high expectations of how that was going to work, but it worked out because she took the extra step to actively follow through on what it is I was asking her to do. And my other honorable mention I have listed is the couple in Guadeloupe, Ben and his wife. Her name is really escaping me right now. Katya. They were such warm hosts. It took me a while to warm up to Katya, and I think it was just because she was a little more quiet than Ben. Because Ben's American. I think he's from Northeast someplace, and Katya, I want to say, is Russian. And Ben did most of the talking the beginning half of the trek, but we got to the beach and Ben went out to surf, and I really got time to just really sit and talk with Kat. And we had such a great conversation, and I promise you, I really feel like I left with friends when I left there. And what I really appreciate the most was I got a free ass what do you call, not swim lesson, surfing lesson. That's when I went surfing for the first time, and I opted out of booking in addition to the tour that I booked with them. I opted out of paying for surf lessons because I kind of felt like, yeah, maybe I'll save that for another destination. Like, let's not overdo it. Let's just, if it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't. And they, instead of just surfing and enjoying the beach on their own and just kind of leaving me to just, lay out and doodle on my phone or tinker around and read a book or some shit like that, they hung out with me. And we, they took the time to get really great footage, and we talked, and they gave me the best little surf lesson. Like, they made it make sense for me. And I had such an incredible time. They ended up bringing me to like the grocery store afterward, helping me navigate a lot of the produce that I didn't really understand. Cause that's the first trip that I really decided that I wanted to do more cooking on. And it was mostly because I didn't like the food that was the closest to me that I could walk to. And for some reason, I just really didn't feel like navigating around the island. Oh, because I didn't have Wi-Fi, or my service was real janky. Like, I just didn't. Oh, I remember I changed my cell service, and my data or roaming or some shit, girl, I was not paying that bill. So I just opted to just work off of Wi-Fi. So they ended up bringing me to the grocery store, really helping me navigate through different aisles and telling me, yo, this shit right here is man good. Get this. This is easy to make with this. If you put this together, this will be a really good. Oh yeah, try these sausages. They're this and that and blah, blah, blah. So they really looked out for me, also making sure that I, had the help that I needed outside of them just being my tour guide. So I appreciated that as well. So I gotta say that the time that I spent reflecting on the different people, interactions, and experiences that I'd had over the past almost 4 years now, mostly 4 years now, of traveling it felt good. It felt good. I know we're not at the the absolute last episode of the year or anything like that. But for as tumultuous as 2020 has been, for as much as it has taken from us, I personally feel that it has given me a lot. And I hope that this episode was just a little bit lighter than whatever it is you may be grappling with at the moment. And I hope that it's given you a green light to just kind of think about some of the things that may not be as immediate to you right now, but things that you may have experienced in your own, past travels that have given you something to not just, think back on and smile over, but some things to really just be grateful for. I feel that one of those things that kind of, I guess, checks me, like a personal self-check that I often sit with, is just grateful people get more. And I truly believe that happy people don't hurt people. And so I personally do my best to vibrate at a level that I want to be at. Like, when I'm in a bad mood, I just lie and tell myself that I'm fine. And as trash and as dumb as it sounds, I promise you, if you just vibrate or just put yourself mentally in the space that you want to be, you'll get there faster than if you didn't. It doesn't always work quickly. I'm not sitting here telling you that if you think you're, in a good situation, your bad situation will disappear. But I can tell you that when it comes to just the mental games and the mental gymnastics, a lot of times that we kind of put ourselves through, a lot of it, if you just take yourself out of the moment of what isn't working and try to really focus on, when you can, the things that are going well and the things that you are grateful for, I find that I'm able to dwell in that space a lot more comfortably than I was previously. So for me, this episode was really the reminder I needed that travel is more than vacation. And although many of us may not feel comfortable going far, many of us do feel comfortable traveling. Whatever travel comfort level you're at, just remember that whether you can or you can't, travel doesn't just have to be about being someplace else, destination wise. It absolutely can be so much more than that if you let it. So be grateful, be safe, and do the best that you can to keep yourself in a good mental space so that you can continue to reap the joys in life where you can. All right, guys. So head over to travelandshippodcast.com for, if you want to watch the YouTube version of it, if you want to purchase merch, if you want to just ask me a question, if you want to suggest a guest, or if you want to suggest anything on the show, shoot me an email, dcarry@travelandshippodcast.com. All the links are in the description box. I am happy to see you guys next week. And don't forget, travel is more than vacation. Bye, y'all. Oh, and I guess happy early. Will it be Christmas when you guys hear this? I don't know. I think we got time. It's only the 15th. Yeah, it ain't gonna be time. So I'll tell y'all motherfuckers Merry Christmas next time. All right, y'all. Bye. Bye, YouTube.